welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Severin and this is Start From Seed. So this afternoon, I am going to can tomato sauce, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to take everybody along with me. It is probably the number one question I get from friends and family, which is, how do I can tomato sauce? It's actually pretty easy, and canning at home is easy and it's safe if you do it properly. Everything that I'm going to show you comes from the National Center for Home Food Preservation, as well as the Ball Blue Book, Guide to Preserving. I'm going to put links down below for you to reference them. If you do it the way that you're supposed to, you're not going to have any problems. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so one of the few things that you're going to need are, of course, jars. Jars that are made for canning, rings, and brand new seals, brand new lids. And what I've done is I've got my sauce going right here. I started it yesterday, cooked it all day, stuck it in the fridge overnight because I was just too tired, brought it out of the refrigerator, stuck it back on the stove, brought it back up to heat. I've cleaned all of my jars, and I also have them sitting in the canner right now in hot water. I am going to take hot tomato sauce, put it in hot jars, put it back in the canner. So let me show you how I do that. So you can see right here, I have my jars sitting in the canner getting nice and warm. Now, the jars are clean, and since we're going to process them for over 35 minutes here in my area, I didn't have to boil them down and disinfect them. So I'm going to use this. Ooh, this takes the jars out. Pouring that excess water out because I don't need it. And I'm going to set it over here. All right. Okay, so I took my ball jars out of the hot water. And the reason I put them in hot water is because hot jars get hot sauce. So that's what we're doing today. Now, for each of these pint jars here, I am going to add to each one some, let's see if we can get that, some citric acid. You can buy this in grocery stores in the canning section as well. Now, you can also, instead of using citric acid, if you don't have it, you could use 1 tablespoon of bottled lemon juice in each jar. If you have quarts, it's half a teaspoon of citric acid and 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. This is something that my great-grandmother never had to worry about, is adding acid to her tomatoes, but now we do because we have a lot more varieties. We don't have the same dirt that we used to have. Things are just different now. Okay, so I'm putting the funnel, as you can see right there. I'm going to fill these with tomato sauce, and we're going to put a 1/2 inch space between the sauce and the top of the jar. And I figured that out by using this little tool here. You can get these in the canning sections, and they got numbers on them. So my 1/2 inch is right about here, as you can see. So somewhere around in there. And I'm going to fill each of these jars up and show you how I put the lids on them and pop them into the canner. Always use a funnel if you can, because what a difference it makes. It really does. You can get pretty messy with this stuff. It's not hard to do. Okay, generally what we like to do is after we put the food into the jars, is to take a tool, a plastic tool like your measurer, and debubble. I don't really worry about bubbles when it comes to heavy sauces. There won't be, generally there isn't air pockets, but gonna do it, you do it right, correct? Now, step 2 is I take a little bit of vinegar in a little bowl here, dip it into the vinegar, clean my hand off, and we're going to wipe the rims off before we add our brand new seals. And the reason we do this is we don't want anything, any food particles coming between the jar and the lid, because that'll prevent it from sealing. So this was a step that I used to forget all the time. So now we're going to take our lids, one lid at a time, brand new. Never reuse your lids. Never, ever. And we're just going to set those down. These are Harvest Guard lids. I've had a lot of luck with them. Now, we're going to put our rings on fingertip tight. Okay? You're not going to put your lids on, your rings on, and crank this jar, okay? That you'll mess up the canning process. So I just do it till it turns. All right. And then I'm going to take my handy dandy jar holder here, and we're going to place these inside of our canner and clean the tomato off of them too. I take you over to the canner so you can see this. So I love this tool. I don't know where I would be without it. Probably with burned hands. How's that? So there's the canner. I already got a couple of jars in there. I have way too much water. I only want about 1 inch or 2 of water to come above those jars. So I'm going to take some of that out. Oh, hey, swing you back around. Did I make everybody dizzy when I did that? I'm so sorry. Oh. All right. I'm going to get the rest of this done. Dropped and broke my tripod, so I'm gonna have to hold this camera the rest of this film here, or this video, just so I can show you what I'm doing. So I have my jars inside the water here. They are all sealed. They're ready to go. One thing I'm gonna do, and this is an option, I'm gonna put the rest of that vinegar inside this water. That's going to keep my jars from getting cloudy. Of course, you can wash that off when you're done processing, but I don't want to use that I don't want to use up the water like that. I have a septic tank, and the less water that goes into it, the happier I am. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put a lid on this. I'm not going to seal it. This is a pressure canner, but I also use it for water bath canning as well, which you can do as long as you don't lock that lid in place. Now what I need is this water to come to a boil. It's starting to, it's getting ready to, and it's very important that those lids be about 1 inch, 2 inches underneath water. Once this starts to boil, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a timer, because these are pint jars, for normally 35 minutes, but because of my elevation, I need to do an extra 5. So these pint jars are going to process for 40 minutes. If they were quart jars, it would be 40 minutes. For my elevation, it would be 45. To find your elevation, Google it. Go to elevation and type in elevation and your zip code, and you're going to get the elevation there. So let's get this rocking. Okay, bringing you back. We now have a boil. See how that's bubbling and boiling? So we are now going to set our alarm here, set my kitchen timer to, what did I say? I wrote it down. Let me look here. I have to process for 40 minutes, so we're going to do that. When the 40 minutes is up, we'll be right back, and I'll show you the next step. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and shut that off. And I got a camera guy helping me out right now. And then what you want to do is very carefully, if you can, take your canner off the heat. That's what I'm going to do here. Turn this off. And lift up the lid, of course, away from your face. Set that over there. Now, do not take these jars out right away. You want them to set for about 5 minutes. So I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes, and then we'll be right back. Now that our timer is off, we can now take these out. I'm going to use my holder here, and we're just going to lift them straight out, and we're going to place them on some towels here. You don't want to put these directly down onto the counter because you don't want to get thermal shock. That's the cold from the counter touching the hot jars could cause them to crack or pop. And some water will accumulate on top of these lids as well. Whatever you do, don't tip those jars. You can give yourself a false seal that way. And if you listen closely, we're beginning to hear these lids ping and pop. The Harvest Guard lids, I noticed that when I do sauce, the ping isn't nearly as loud and poppy as, say, a ball jar. Okay, so one of the things you don't want to do is you do not want to cover these up in a towel. You do not want them to place them in an area where the air conditioner is blowing on them or the windows open. Don't flip them upside down. You are going to leave these here now for about 12 hours, and hopefully every single one of these will ping, and that's all there is to it. So there you have it. Canning tomato sauce. It's pretty easy, it's a lot of fun, and you'll have your tomatoes to eat come wintertime. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me below. Also, don't forget to visit that website for the Center for National Home Food Preservation. Once again, everybody, thanks for hanging out with me. Happy gardening, happy canning.